Hello and welcome back to Geordie Leather. Today we're going to look at burnishing leather, the different tools required and the different sort of finishes we hope to achieve. So let's head over to the overhead camera and get started. So what exactly is burnishing? Burnishing is the process of turning a raw cut edge of leather into a nice, attractive, smooth, shiny surface. Let's give you an example. Here's a piece of leather. If you look at the edge closely, you can see it's quite hairy. All the little fibres of the leather are sticking up in different directions and it doesn't look very nice. So the process of burnishing is to try and get those fibres to lie flat and to stick down so that we can give a nice shiny edge to the edge of the leather. Now we do that by a variety of different methods. You can't polish a dry edge of leather. It has to be moistened either with water or a chemical such as 𝐵𝐾𝐈𝐄𝐼𝐄. So we'll take this little piece of leather here. I've purposely cut it so it's got a straight edge and a curved edge so we can use the different parts of the different tools required for burnishing. So like I say, you can either just take some water and an ordinary sponge and just moisten the edge. So we can do that, just dampen the sponge, squeeze off the excess and just keep it flat against the surface until the edge is moistened with the water. And that surface is now ready to start burnishing. Now some people prefer water, some people prefer to use a cream of some sort. There are different types of creams on the market. The most common one is what's called 𝐵𝐾𝐈𝐄𝐼𝐄. Difficult to say, but it's very useful. It just acts as an agent which helps the fibres to stick down whilst you're burnishing it. And the friction caused by the burnishing process heats up the chemical and the leather and makes things bond together. So I use this personally. There are other things on the market, but we won't cover those today because this is a basic entry-level tutorial. So once we've moistened the edge, we then need to use what's called a burnishing tool. Now as you can see from here, I have a wide variety of burnishing tools and there are others available as well as these. Probably the most common is this little thing here. This is a very cheap burnishing tool available from China, eBay, Amazon, everywhere for very little money. It consists of, if you look carefully, a piece of wood, usually made of beech, nice hard wood, with a variety of different grooves turned into it. Now each groove has a different diameter for different thicknesses of leather. So for example, this piece of leather would fit nicely into that groove there. Thicker leathers, obviously, you would use the larger grooves, and thinner leathers, the narrower grooves. So we use this tool, or one of these other tools, to what's called burnish the edge, or to slick the edge, to make the edge smooth and shiny. So, like I say, this is the most common, but there are others. This is another similar cheap, it's a flat burnisher, slicking tool. So it's really only useful for flat edges, like on the edges of belts. So it'll do very well for things like this, but obviously no good for internal curves because it just isn't the right shape. Recently acquired, you may have seen a review on these, or the much improved version of the cheap Chinese slicker. These are from Just Wood, justwood.com. They come in two different types, one with a flat surface and one with a domed surface. So the other option is this little wooden wheel which has a groove, a domed groove, which allows you to get into nice interior curves like this. So that's the basic burnishing tools. They say there are other variations on the market, but these are the sort of things you'd use most commonly. This is probably used by most people. As you can see from the difference in colour, I use this the most. One thing I would recommend, you can see that this slicking tool, burnisher, is starting to go black where I've used it on black leather. Now, ideally you should have two of these, one for dark leathers and one for natural or light coloured leathers, because if you use the same tool which you've been using for black leather on an undyed leather like this, that dye will transfer to the edge and will darken, possibly spoil your project. So if possible, get yourself two of these. Keep one for natural undyed leathers and one for dark blacks and browns and so on. That way you won't spread your dye onto places you don't want it spread to. So let's actually do some burnishing. Let's take away all of this. So we have our piece of leather. I'm going to use some 𝐿 and we'll actually get this edge. We have a good look at it first so you can see that it's quite hairy. It has been prepared as shown in the previous video on edge finishing, ready for burnishing. So it's been sanded. I've used the edge beveler to take the corners off and it's now ready for burnishing. This is quite a hairy leather, so this is a bit of a challenge, and most leathers aren't quite as hairy as this. So first stage is to apply some 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿. So give it a little bit of a stir or a bit of a shake. It's basically an almost clear liquid, and all we basically do is hold your piece of leather firmly between your fingers like this. Use your finger. This is perfectly harmless. It's not a dangerous chemical, so use your finger. Just dip it in and just apply to the edge of the leather that you're going to be burnishing. Put it along the top, just gently on the edges. So what you want to do is you want to cover those loose fibres up so that when we slick it with a tool, it will squash them down flat. So then we just take a tool. It doesn't matter what size groove you start off with, a larger one probably is better, and then just pressing it firmly on the edge and go backwards and forwards, and you'll see that the edge will start to eventually shine. And if you listen to the sound it's making, it'll come to a point where it'll start to squeak. And when you get that squeak, you know it's burnished properly. So it does take a bit of elbow grease. I'm just gently tipping the tool slightly backwards and forwards so I get access to the edges as well as the top. Now you hear that sound? That's the sound of it starting to become burnished, and you can probably see a bit of a shine developing there as well. So it's almost done. You can see already that there is a much better polished surface there. You see it's got a hairy back, so ignore that for the moment. So if we then apply a bit extra 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿, you can already see that starting to come up nice and polished. So we just continue, use a smaller groove and just do that again, a bit more elbow grease. You see the friction that's caused by the burnishing process helps to get those fibres to lie nice and flat. Come down to a smaller groove. That'll help to nip those end fibres together. So let's have a look. Now if you look carefully, you can see the shine on the edge there, and it feels very smooth compared with the rough edge of the untreated leather. So you've got a nice smooth polished edge there. So that's what burnishing is. We're basically converting a rough cut edge into a nice, slightly rounded over, polished edge. Now in the next episode we're going to cover finishing, which will include finishing the polished burnished edges with edging coat, edging paint. But that is the basic process of burnishing. What you can do, if you find that when you've burnished it there's a bit of a mushroom edge on one side or both sides, just take this part of your burnisher, lie your piece flat and just go over that edge. Zoom in slightly, and that will push down that little round over. You can also just generally go over and work that edge until it's nice and smooth. Like I say, this is an unusually hairy piece of leather, probably not a good piece for an example, but there we have a nicely polished edge. So that's burnishing. Quite simple. There's no mystique about it. What we will do next, I did forget, I have this other concave area. So again, the advantage of using this tool is that you can get into that area quite easily. So let's just quickly apply some 𝐵𝐿𝐵 to that internal curve. And then we can take a burnisher and just twisting the tool around the curve. It's always best to try, if you can, press the work against a firm surface. You've got somewhere to apply a bit of pressure to. But you'll see the leather start to change colour from the white, pale sort of veg tan colour to a darker polished edge as it becomes more and more burnished. This is a tricky piece to hold, so apologies if it's flopping around a lot on your screen. But as you can see, I'm just twisting the burnishing tool with my wrist, and that's getting into that concave shape there quite nicely. So generally with burnishing, the more time you spend doing it, the better edge you're going to get. Obviously this is just a demonstration video, but if you invest the time, you get much better results. So I think you get the idea. So you will come to a point where you'll start to see a shine on the surface and you'll start to hear a squeak. That squeak tells you that you're done. But the more effort you put in here, the better the end result will be for the final project. So I'm not sure if that's picking up very well on the camera, but there is a nice shine to that edge there. See, it is a hairy back, which is a bit frustrating, but most leathers you wouldn't have that problem. So we can slick the back with some 𝐵𝐿𝐵 to flatten the grain a bit, sorry, the flesh side, and that will prevent that issue there. But as you can see, that's what we've shown today is the burnishing process, and that's a nice smooth, feels nice for the touch. Now on a nice finished product, that will really make the product stand out and look complete. So anyway, that's burnishing. There's no mystique about it, it just requires a bit of elbow grease. So if you put the time in, you get a good finished product. So until the next episode, where we're going to finish off this general area of dealing with leather, we're going to talk about finishing leather. So that's applying different kinds of finishes to protect it, to waterproof it, and to make it look a bit more attractive. So we'll do that in the next episode. So thanks for watching, and don't forget, please click the like button and the subscribe button, and if you want to be notified when our next video comes out, click the bell to receive a notification. So until then, thanks for watching. Bye bye.